You're listening to the 4-Phase Cycle Podcast with your hosts, Dr. Alex and Megan of ZESTY Ginger. If you're looking to naturally balance hormones and learn how to work with your body instead of against it, you've definitely come to the right place. As a duo of an integrative MD and a functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner and best friends, we use the 4 phases of the female cycle in combination with functional lab work and mindset practices to transform the lives of the women we work with.
We also have a whole lot of fun along the way. If you're new around here, it's best to start with season 1 before jumping around and plan to roll up your sleeves. Showing up for ourselves and enjoying our lives is what good health is all about. Just a quick reminder though, this information is not intended to diagnose, manage, or treat disease. Always consult with your doctor before making changes.
Hello, Alex here, and we're back with day 4 of the Flowing with Your Cycle series. I really hope that you're enjoying it. I also really hope that you have grabbed the companion guide that's over at zestyginger.com/flow, and of course you can always find all the links that we talk about in the show notes. But essentially, we are cooking along in the release phase, which is what Megan and I call phase 1. And the reason we've kind of switched to not naming them quite as much because there are different ways of talking about the cycle broken up into parts that are out there. And so while our phases are labeled based off of my interpretation of the physiology, like all of us are looking at the same stuff happening inside the female body, and all of us have come to the conclusion that it breaks down into 4 discrete phases, right? So that's where the similarity comes from. My starting of phase 1 during the time where you have your period is maybe a little bit different than some of the other systems. However, when I look at the physiology, to me it makes the most sense because that's when the brain is making the decisions that set up the rest of the cycle. That's where it starts, not where it ends, even though we kind of look at the period as the culmination. And I think that's how people got there. And so in any case, that is why over time we've gotten a little bit away from the naming of it, just because it added another layer of, people trying to decipher what it was. However, I do, when the word that comes to mind during phase 1 is release, right? Not only physically, because we're having our period or are in the time around our period, but also this leads us into day 4, which is really on the concept of when we do things like inventory and when we learn to listen to the signals of our body, there's lots of actions that then flow out of that space. And a lot of it is creation, right? Because we're forward-looking beings and we are here to create our lives and co-create with others and whatever we perceive to be kind of like the higher authority, to create what is new from scratch, which is amazing. And that is why the phases 2 and 3 that follow are also so much fun, because we talk about that bigger picture of from this place of getting really clear about where you are and what you want, to then powerfully feel into what the actual steps look like to make that a reality, which of course I think everyone is on board with that being the goal. The other side of that equation is that a lot of times we can take that knowledge and apply it to things that we are going to release to take that place, or to open, that will be taken up by something else, right? And it's kind of the same reason. And I think when we concretize it, it makes a lot of sense. Like if you're going to buy new clothes and you're looking at your closet and it's stuffed, but it's stuffed with things that you don't normally wear anymore, then we can, generally speaking, most people are like, cool, let me clean out my closet. I'll donate that stuff or give it away or repurpose it, and I'll get new clothes. In life, there is a similar flow, but we are a lot more attached to some of the things than we are to clothes. I mean, heck, I've been attached to clothes, so that's not even that big of a leap. But of course, sometimes releasing things when it comes to life stuff, even when we know we've outgrown it or it no longer fits or whatever it is, it can feel harder to do that, and the clarity is not always there, right? Like when you're looking at a closet, the reason it's easier to see is that you're looking at its entirety and making determinations about it, right? That's like the clarity piece. When we look at our lives, it's not always so easy to see that bigger picture, and therefore it feels more difficult to make those determinations. Our point of bringing this up during this is when it comes to flowing with your cycle, the acknowledgement that it can be tricky is very helpful. The other thing that's really helpful then is like, well, if how and when I do it can make things easier, then we're cooking. Then you start to ask better questions instead of saying it's hard to have clarity about my life. Like, sure, that actually can be true. I can certainly relate, and there are times where yes, I feel that clarity is hard to get in life. However, when I start asking questions like, well, when would be an easier time, and when is that kind of thing set up, this is where it starts to actually give you answers then you can work with, right? So sometimes when I'm feeling down, it feels like, the answer is never, right? You're like, I never get it. But for most of us, you kind of realize that there's better and worse time for things. And so in the release phase, because we're already geared to be looking at the bigger picture, it is like standing back and looking at the closet. And part of that then can be the process of saying, I'm gearing up for where I'm going, right? Which clothes am I purchasing that are in alignment with what I actually dress for now, right? I used to get dresses and stuff that I really liked, but I wore scrubs 90% of the time for work, right? So I was actually getting stuff that like I didn't need. So we do the same thing in practical life, right? You're like, I can plan for the dresses, but if that's not what I'm wearing and what I'm using, I either need to find reasons to wear the dresses or I need to acknowledge what I'm getting, right? And so for me, it was a reason to wear the dresses. And so, you can stick with whatever analogy makes the most sense for you. But I think that when we use an example that is something that we don't have a lot of emotion about, sometimes it's easier to get those insights. Then that's the only reason I'm using clothes as kind of a thing, right? So we're looking forward, and then with that, we can start to see the flip side of it, which is how do I open up space in my life for that kind of thing. So for this day, my question for you when it comes to flowing with your cycle is, have you considered, or could you just start to even ask yourself some of these questions of what are the things that can be released from my life? When we ask that, we can start to get information that is already available to us. So even just asking that alone can sometimes give us the one next impulse. So sometimes when I'm in the space and I've taken the days leading up to it to really think about what I want, when then I ask myself and give my brain the task of to get those things, what is it that I need to release? Then it gives me the impulse. Sometimes that looks like go clean this drawer, which doesn't seem like anything, but you kind of know how this goes, right? You've been around here long enough to to like, you clean out the drawer, you find the thing that you're like, oh, hey, I was looking for this. And then you use the thing, and that gives you another impulse, and, you know, down the road you go, right? So even things that don't appear like a big deal can happen. Sometimes it really is just the act of symbolically cleaning something out. Like, you clean out a drawer just to clean out the drawer because you say, I don't want junk in my drawer. I'm just the kind of person that has their space look the way they want, and that doesn't include junk drawers, right? You don't have to even get anything from that junk drawer for cleaning it out and releasing that stuff to be meaningful. It can just be an act of acknowledging that I want something, I will feel it, and I will carry it out. And through small acts like this, it really starts to add up of, I do the things that I need to do in my life that gets me to where I want to be. And that teaches us that we are our own authority, rather than what most of us have been conditioned with is like, we're at the mercy of, you know, we have to be given things in order to get them, or, you know, we have to get love or connection from other people. And this is sometimes things like cleaning out a drawer or decluttering your closet is like, I give myself what I need, and I do that in small, tiny ways that aren't sexy at all. And so that can be an event. Sometimes, though, we get a hit of something big that needs to be released. And then in this scenario, that's where it's helpful to remember that the cycles follow one another, one after another, after another, after another, without any pause. So we are not, the expectation is not that we clear something big out in one sitting, if that's what comes up. Sometimes what it is just acknowledging the hint that something isn't working for us, which can be a really big step. You know, if it's something like a relationship, right? Just even acknowledging that something needs to be released can be really difficult to do. And so we toe that line between wanting to acknowledge it and not quite going there. Or like, hey, I actually want to quit my job. But like, our job is our security, is our ability to make money. So like, it's even scary to go there. So sometimes what it looks like is just hearing that tiny little voice and just saying, I don't have to figure you out right now. I don't have to have a 10-step plan to resolve that all of a sudden. It can just be this cycle, you know. And this is why it's fun to write things down, is because you look back and you're like, this is where that spark started. And then it plays out however it plays out at the rate that we are ready for at any given time. But it can absolutely look like that. So hopefully you're seeing how, you know, well-timed questions, even when they're not, you know, we're not judging the quality of the answer that we get, but asking, you know, at a time when our brain is already doing this kind of stuff, can then light the little tiny flame that becomes something very big over time. And with that, it really is reassuring that we can move our life forward in a way that we are acting as the authority and the ultimate decision maker for. And we also give ourselves the grace to know how to move through those things, right? And give ourselves the time to figure it out along the way, rather than expecting ourselves to be like, I know everything all at once, right? And so the zooming out helps. And this is not an either or thing. I have previously had that where I was like, I just need to keep zooming out far enough where I have the whole picture. Then I'll know, and then I'll take action. And there have been times where some of that was applicable, but more often than not, I've had to acknowledge that, at least for myself, and I don't know if this is applicable to every single person, but at least for myself, there is a combination of some of this I can get a big picture on as big as I can see it now, and I still will have questions about how it all plays out. And again, that's why doing it cycle by cycle, just asking yourself this now, whatever comes up is what comes up, and then you will ask again. And from that, you're further on down the road, so it's going to look a little bit different, and it's going to appear more clear in whatever way it is that you need to get guided on that path, right? So, tiny little question today, tiny little topic, really, really big ramifications. And you'll see in the companion guide, there are more specific ways to start to make it really tangible for yourself. And that's why we included it in there. However, start with that big question, really the overall question first, and then continue to guide yourself down the more specifics of it, because it is peeling back the onion layers every single time. Right? It's a bunch of things that we have picked up over time and created around ourselves as our reality. And now this is going to be the invitation to start peeling things back. And when we peel things back, we remove the obstacles keeping us from what we decided we're going, right? We decided we're going some way, but sometimes we don't act in a way that's in accordance with that, right? So that's why this releasing stuff is such an important flip side of the coin, so that we are not self-sabotaging our own goals with the onion layers that we already have created. And really what's cool about that is that we get to peel them back and we get to make conscious decisions rather than things that were passed down to us or told. We get to construct a new way of being, and that it's freeing, first of all. But Megan and I, at least, I'm going to share our belief, and you can agree or not. This is not something that I'm like putting out there as a truth, but for Megan and I, the way that we think about things is that as we all do this work, like we do it for ourselves, right? We learn from it, and then we share that experience with you. That's what I'm doing here. Like, I've done this, and that's why you're getting a podcast episode with what I have experienced. As we all do that and we get the awareness and the learnings and we become more conscious, that's what we believe is going to create a better, more safer, more loving, conscious world. It's like individual little flames of all of us doing our stuff. And then when that comes together, what we make together on the planet is the biggest goal that we have, right? So that's our belief. And that is why when we do this work, it feels powerful to us, right? And that's the question for you, is what is it that you believe that doing this kind of thing is like? Of course, it's so our lives can be better and we get the joy. That's the whole point of being here, right? Figuring out how to live in joy and have the life that we actually want to have. And it also has the added benefit of, as we do that, we're all impacting each other and it becomes like a better place for all of us. And so even when it's hard, even when it feels down, some of this release conversation brings up a lot of stuff. I totally get that. I'm with you. And yet when I think of it in that big way, it brings a little bit more joyfulness to it overall, because I'm like, I want that world. I want the vision of that. And if me doing this helps, it's motivating, right? And so your belief can be whatever it is. If you do it for your family or anything like that, it doesn't have to be for anyone. Maybe it's just, I really believe that much in my own joy and the reason that I'm here, that like I will have the life that I want. There's no other thing that you need other than like whatever it is that you decide. But if you're having a hard time with it, those are the kind of places where I go to really think and and think through, because it's motivating for me to feel like this is my heart, this is my vision, this is where it is that I'm going, and all of this is just me getting there. It's like, that's just the journey, and I don't have to judge it quite so hard or feel like I have to get it right on the first time, because there's a lot of things I didn't get right on the first time, and I'm still doing them, and successfully now. So it's the same thing here. Even if it feels funny or unsteady or whatever it is that comes up for you, it's okay. It's really all just okay. All right. So that is the podcast episode for today. I know that one was a little bit of a deeper one in terms of potentially bringing up some emotions and some concerns and things like that, but know that tomorrow will be a new day. There's going to be new things that come up, and today can just be what it is and what it turns out to be. And then after that, it's another day, and after that, it's another cycle, and after that, it's another year of cycles, and all of it is just flowing exactly the way that it needs to flow. All right, my loves, thank you so much for being with me today, and I'll talk to you soon.
Thanks for coming out to hang with us on the podcast. It is our goal to transform the way women are treated in healthcare, and we need your help. We need your help to get the word out. We have a lofty goal of 1 million downloads, and we know that as this podcast grows, we're going to be able to reach more women, get more amazing speakers for you, and bring the most cutting-edge information.
If you found these podclasses helpful, please take a moment to text 5 women you know the link to the series. We appreciate your help so much. Can't wait to see you next time.